Okay, so Bitcoin was created as apolitical money. It wasn't supposed to have politics involved in it, but as we've learned in this past week, politicians can have a significant impact on its fortunes. We are about to hear from somebody who has played a significant role in that, perhaps the biggest backer of this industry in Congress, Tom Emmer, the majority whip for the US House of Representatives, and he will be interviewed by my old friend Matt Murray, who is the former editor-in-chief of the Wall Street Journal. A few months back, before I left CoinDesk, Matt kindly agreed to take on the role as the chairman of an external committee we created to protect the independence of our journalists. So please welcome Congressman Emmer and Matt Murray. Matt.
Michael, thank you.
Congressman, it's good to see you. Thanks for coming to Austin.
Good to see you, Matt. I feel like I'm a little overdressed, but
Yeah.
I think I'll survive.
This is the fogey segment, but we got a lot to talk about. So, obviously, we want to start with Fit 21. Last week, there's a lot of things that are going on, but the biggest thing maybe last week was you passed Fit 21 in the House. This is the bill laying out new rules, distinguishing between the CFTC, the SEC. It's been something you and House leadership has pursued for a long time. How do you rate from, it's almost a week since it passed. Is anything happening in the Senate? Is anything going to happen in the Senate? What have you heard since you passed?
Well, I think what you're going to see as we head towards September, which is the next funding deadline, right? The calendar is going to continue to get more and more compressed.
Yeah.
So while I can't tell you that Chuck Schumer, who actually broke with the White House and with the senator from Massachusetts, who shall not be named, when he broke with
Senator Warren,
with 11, not named by me, when he broke with the White House and that senator and some others on SAB 121.
yeah.
I'm not telling you that's a sign to me that the star of the senator from Massachusetts and perhaps the SEC chair may be fading a little bit, and that could be a sign that maybe the next thing they will do to try and help the Biden administration, which they could use some wins in this election year, maybe Chuck brings that to the floor of the Senate. The problem he's going to have, I believe, is that they're going to modify it. Yeah. They're going to want to change it, which means then it comes back to the House. Right now, my best bet would be if we get this done this year, it's probably more likely during the lame duck once the dust settles and everybody who's wearing their jerseys now recognizes we got to get moving on.
You touched on a number of things I want to go deeper on. I'll take them one at a time, but let's start with, I think 73 Democrats voted for this bill last
71.
71.
But I know there were two others that wanted to.
And what's your read as Democrats, again, bucking the White House, supporting that number? Is that political? Is that a evolving view of crypto more broadly on the Hill? What's your read on what's happening with the Democrats?
All of the above. It's a process that has been ongoing, but I think what you saw, first, we've got Republicans and Democrats who both have major concerns about centralized top-down control.
Yeah.
And I mean, you don't get to see it because the 24/7 entertainment-driven soundbite news isn't interested in those stories of people working together. They'd rather show you a great car accident, right? People arguing with each other and running into each other. There is a ton of goodwill under the surface. You can start with the Financial Services Committee in the House. You got great champions like Richie Torres on the left, which I say this publicly, but Richie Torres and Tom Emmer could not be more different in the way we live our lives and our political perspective. You know, on this issue, Richie and I are in complete alignment, and I think you've got a lot more of that than you know, and you saw it with the SAB 121 vote, with 21 Democrats voting with the Republicans to get rid of that ridiculous rule. And then you saw it even more so with the FIT 21 bill when you had 71.
I feel driven to say, for the record, just I'm not currently associated in any full-time capacity with any news organization, since I agree with you with what you said about the news. I wish we could go deeper on policy sometimes. But let me, I want to ask you about another component, which is the White House. The White House had been critical of this bill. They were, I don't know if you'd call them conciliatory last week, but the president didn't talk of a veto, and they put out a statement indicating there's room for maybe negotiation on this legislation. How do you read that?
That's kind of like the border.
Yeah.
When they want to negotiate, they want to win, but they don't want to do what it is that needs to happen. That's the partisan coming out in me, but that's just been the experience.
So you don't take that, you don't rate that or take that seriously?
Not from the White House. I would take it more seriously from the leader of the Senate.
Okay.
The reason I say not from the White House is because that certain senator from Massachusetts, I will argue, has had an oversized voice when it comes to the personnel that are in the White House.
Yeah.
And that has had an impact on what we've been able to do. By the way, I'm an equal opportunity complainer or criticizer. The previous administration gave us some problems. I mean, I thought they had some great people, Hester Peirce, Giancarlo, Brian Brooks, but we still ran into this anti-crypto sentiment, not on my watch, which we have to work through. And now it's just, it's been, I was hoping with the new administration we would get a more forward-looking view, but quickly realized that the person that drove a lot of the personnel decisions in the White House is actually the anti-crypto senator. And
I'm going to come to that, to the prior administration. I want to talk through a couple of the other news things happening. You had another triumph for you, I think, because it's a bill that matters to you, which was the CBDC Act passing. That was much less bipartisan. I think you only had three. Is that symbolic, essentially, at this point, that bill?
No, I think that's the future. I don't think the Biden camp recognized until this happened over the last month or so, and I think our camp understands this, how politically potent this issue is. We do not want a CCP, a Chinese Communist Party style surveillance tool ever being developed and implemented in this country. That is a Republican, Democrat, and other value.
So why didn't Democrats vote in bigger numbers for that?
I think, so I was told by one who I like a lot, he said, "You're killing me, because all we should have had was, before you can do this, you have to come to Congress for authorization." Actually, no. We did it the right way.
Which, by the way, is what Chair Powell says, we can't do it without Congress. That's his line.
Yeah, he said both ways.
Yeah.
He's been on both sides of that. And Chair Powell, God bless him, but he's from the past.
Yeah.
He looks forward and doesn't see the digital asset space the way we need to be looking at it. My humble opinion, and he and I can disagree on that. But there has been confusion created by the administration, by politicos, Republicans, Democrats, about whether you need to come to Congress for authorization before you can develop and implement. There was the executive order by the White House that said this is urgent, we need to get this done. This bill was it actually predated that, because this is something I've been working on for probably 4 years, 5 years already. But it took a while to get our people there, and I think you had 3 Democrats, but I'm gonna argue that you have as big a number as you had on FIT 21. That was more of a political statement, which I think many representatives will regret.
I want to push on one question, which is understanding the privacy concern, which is the core of the concern for you, right? The criticism sometimes for the US is others are developing their digital coins. You mentioned the CCP, China's ahead of us, this is the coming thing. There's a workshop actually here tomorrow on this issue, and I wonder, as you look down the road, is there a version of a true digital cash solution, a privacy protecting central bank digital currency possible down the road as the technology or the industry advance or mature? Do you see that possibility one day? Is there a path for what you
I think anything's possible, but you're talking to a 63-year-old guy who's never coded anything in his life. All of the smart people out here can tell me if that's possible. All I wanted to do, which we did in this bill, if the government, we're not going to say never, if the government or the people that develop this for the government can create a digital cash that emulates cash, open, permissionless, and private with a capital P, okay, then we have to look at it, I believe. But until you can do that, and I'm not so convinced you can, but we'll see. I think there's so much potential here and even beyond the financial realm when we talk about the technology that's involved. And by the way, you want to really take us to the next level, you come up with solid stablecoin legislation that is a dollar-backed stablecoin that can be created and traded anywhere around the world. Guess what? You're going to see the digital asset space go to a whole new level, much like you've just seen in the last month or two as we started to move these things through Congress and people recognize, no, this is a trillion-plus market cap. This ain't going away. Yeah. It's valuable.
Let me ask you on a couple of those other news developments. Were you surprised at the SEC approval of Ether ETFs?
No.
You thought they would do that?
He's been getting his rear end handed to him. Gary Gensler has been the worst thing that could ever have happened to the SEC. He has gone way beyond the authority that he has. He literally violates the mission of the SEC every day. What the SEC is supposed to do is we want capital investment. We want new opportunities. And these guys are trying to stop him. His open door policy is the biggest crock of you-know-what that ever existed. It's literally, come on in, tell me what your project is, and then we're going to sue you. The problem here is that he has lost repeatedly. And as we've seen in the last month, his colleague in the Senate, both of them are starting to, they've lost their credibility.
Well, are they defanged? Does that mean, from your view, they're defanged? In other words, the crypto agenda is winning? Is it tactical? I mean, let me put it this way, if he's approving Ether ETFs and he's approved Bitcoin ETFs, so we see how they've taken off, does it matter if he's in that job for you?
I'd be very careful about trusting a cornered animal with nothing to lose but its life. Gary Gensler's on his way out. I think
regardless of who wins the election, you think?
I think he is. Yeah, I think
so
he is.
Be a change
I think you've seen him lose favor with the administration, and that's why you have a Chuck Schumer who literally leads the charge for the Democrats in the Senate to get rid of this foolish Sob 121.
Yeah. One other news thing I wanted to ask you about, which goes back a couple weeks now. What was your take on the Supreme Court decision backing the funding mechanism for the CFPB? Never a popular agency for Republican leadership. That was a 7-2 decision written by Clarence Thomas. Does it change how you think about the CFPB agenda and where it fits in there at all, or does it, or not at all? You're smiling now.
No. If you look, people who want to attack our U.S. Supreme Court just because we don't agree with their decision, those are the people who are destabilizing democracy. Look, the Supreme Court's got a function to do. People are trying to make it hyper-political. On this issue, very nuanced, Matt, and very narrow, they literally said this is Congress's job.
Yep.
You created it, you got to fix it. So no, it hasn't changed anything, but I'll tell you, if we have the opportunity to do it, we need to put the CFPB in its place, rightful place, which is under the oversight and supervision of Congress. That is your problem.
As an independent agency,
yeah, I can argue partisan stuff all day long, but just on its most basic level, that's the issue.
Okay, that sets up well to think about what obviously we're in an election year, we all know that, we can't over-speculate, but can you give us a sense of what the agenda for the GOP in Congress looks like if the presidency, the Senate, and the House are all in Republican hands come next January?
I do. I mean, if I have anything to say about it, we need to be focused on economics and security. Let's put all this other stuff off to the side and let's get back to what made this country great, which is allowing the innovators the space to innovate, create, and grow prosperity. And let's make sure everybody's safe and secure in their town, city, state.
So what does that mean? Like let's say the GOP has a big year this year, as some people forecast. That does mean your crypto legislation, you think, becomes law? Are there other things that you haven't even tackled in the current political environment that are specific kinds of ideas or implementations that we could see?
I mean, on the digital asset space in particular, we were talking, or I referenced the previous administration and the difficulties we encountered, which just continued and got enhanced in this current administration. What's very interesting is the two candidates, and I don't care who you like, who you don't like, doesn't matter. The two candidates that are going to be the two candidates, and Kennedy will be out there and he'll take votes from both, but ultimately this is the choice. You have a Biden administration that hasn't quite figured out yet how potent this political perspective is. There are so many single issue voters when we talk about cryptocurrency and other digital assets. And we've got a candidate on the Republican side who seems to have evolved. I mean, just go back, May 8th. May 8th, Joe Biden issues an executive order that he is going to veto SAB 121, the CRA. That night, Donald Trump, in a rally, says, this is where we're going. Cryptocurrency, he's not opposed to it. He's supported it. He's moved in this completely different direction. And now you see Chuck Schumer lead these 11 Democrats.
That sounds like they're both evolving, actually, when you put it that way.
And I think Trump is just doing it faster, or his people are. They recognize there is a group of voters in this country, 18 to 40. There's a lot from other voting groups that are in this space, but this space in particular, this is where they live. They don't trust people like me in Washington, D.C. to tell them, oh, this is what you should be allowed to do on the internet. This is what you should be allowed to do in terms of creating value and exchanging value. And I think the one camp has figured out this is the potent issue. I mean, greatest example is that fun movie, Dumb Money, right? This is the new revolution. If you want to tell us what we can and can't do, we're going to show you what we can do. And I think one candidate is starting to tap into that. We'll see if the other one comes around.
Do you think, when you talked about the prior administration, does that mean that from your discussions with the Trump campaign, and you think they'd have a different kind of regulatory regime this time around on these issues than they did the first time? You're pretty confident of that?
I do.
I want to ask, in a broad sense, from the industry perspective, obviously you're a Republican, you're in the House leadership, so you've got a perspective, but you do have this moment, as you say, where crypto is kind of being seized upon, which is great from the crypto industry perspective. In the long run, is there, I got to say this right, is it good for crypto to move forward but be associated with the Republican Party, or is it the better thing for the industry for there to be a bipartisan consensus, even if that requires compromise on some issues, if you know what I mean? What's the best political future for crypto?
First off, it ain't bipartisan. This is nonpartisan. And I hope both camps figure this out, because this can't become a us versus them issue. It has to be a we. And we've worked really hard to do this. And I know people are going to make arguments, but I don't believe you've got Republicans and Democrats fighting with each other right now. I believe you have people who side with the administrative state and the central government, and you have people who side with the individual. When I was growing up, I was told the difference between a Republican and a Democrat is that Republicans think all the best ideas come from the individual. Democrats think that we have to have the government providing ideas because we got to balance it. The fact is, it was somewhere in between. And now we're almost going full circle back to this thing where we're going to fight about, and it doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or a Republican or other, you need to find candidates who align with those values, and we got to refrain from making this, well, I'm a Republican, therefore I support crypto. No, that's not what it's about. You have great Democrats who are on that side.
I hear you, but isn't there a little bit of a risk right now of it becoming partisan in that way?
Well, it is if the guy in the White House continues to listen to the senator from Massachusetts and all of her acolytes. I mean, you better start recognizing that this is not the world where you get to tell people how they're going to live. They're going to live the way they want to live, and they'll do this for you. Remember, what was it? The government in Rome fell long before people even noticed or cared. And right now, we are at a point in time, I'm unlike others, the cowboy, cowgirl spirit in this country is alive and well. I mean, you've got a whole group of young people, I believe, that are spawning the next generation of libertarians. They're not Republicans, they're not Democrats, but that pandemic showed them how fragile their freedom is, and they're not going to let some old, white-haired, self-proclaimed experts tell them what they can and can't do. They'll handle that, thank you, and I think that's the world that we're in right now. So if we can get the other camp to start to recognize you can't dictate, you got to start listening, I think then you get the better result.
If you put it that way, but if the other camp moves, ultimately you end up in some kind of compromises on some things.
Sure.
So there was a big story in the Washington Post this weekend about how the industry has increased its spending quite dramatically, its lobbying quite dramatically in Washington. It's no secret, so it's okay to say you've been supported by some people in the crypto industry in your campaign, so just to get that out of the way. Is the industry, as it grows its Washington presence from what you see, focusing on the right things, being constructive in the right way to get to a sort of a broader bipartisan consensus acceptance? Is there thoughts from what you see candidly?
Okay, so from the campaign side, and first off, compromise, it's gotten a bad connotation because of politicians.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to find ways to work together and reach results that honor both perspectives or all perspectives. But there will ultimately have to be give and take on both sides as we move forward. But this issue, I'm actually kind of pleased because it looks to me like, and again, I've done this in my other life. I ran the campaign operation for the Republicans for 4 years in the House, so I'm very familiar with it. And what I see looking around the country is your money is actually supporting not political parties, but candidates who align with your issues. That I think is the right way to do it, because you've got a Republican and Democrat party that are evolving into something different. Yeah. There's this huge group that still matters in the middle. Those that are right of center, those that are left of center, that agree on these issues. And I think as long as you continue to do that, you accelerated the learning curve in 2019. When some bean counter that they like to do in Washington said, oh, you can generate $30 to $40 billion a year if you just create this undefined tax on software developers, on miners, and then all of a sudden, the industry weighed in. You literally helped us bring this forward, this industry did, bring this forward a decade like that. This is the next step, is making sure that you know your candidates, you know where they stand when it comes to these issues that matter to you, and I think you're doing it.
I mean, obviously, the implication of an art like that Washington Post article, I don't even know if you read it, is crypto is buying candidates, and that's reflected in a bill that is seen to be the softer side. Did you have a reaction to that, just to ask?
I love it that he asked me if I read the Washington Post. No, I did not read it. But I would tell you that that doesn't surprise me a bit. Do I think the crypto industry is buying? No. You can support me. I'm going to do the right thing for the right reason as I see it, whether it agrees with you or not, and I'm more than happy to tell you why I did what I did and back it up. I think most representatives are like that. This is no different than the healthcare industry. This is no different than the airline industry. This is all about I want to get to know you. I'm going to invest in you because I want to see you be the representative because your views are in alignment with mine. I'm not always going to agree with everything you do, but on the issues that matter to me, I think we are in alignment. And by the way, every day for me in this job is a job interview because at some point, you may not like what I'm doing. And at that point, guess what? I get my exit papers and you elect somebody else. It's the way the system's supposed to work.
How did you get interested in crypto? I mean, you identified with the issue. You said a few minutes ago, I think you said you were a 63-year-old white-haired guy.
Young 63.
Who's never, doesn't program.
Nope.
But you are a champion on crypto and you've been immersed in the issues for a long time. You're not a dilettante about it at all. What got you interested in this issue as one of the core things for you?
Well, Michael Casey and one of his colleagues wrote a book, The Age of Crypto, The Age of Cryptocurrency.
Cryptocurrency, yeah.
I had a staffer who, I'm an outdoors guy, I'm a, hands-on guy. He was a gamer, Minnesota kid. He gave me this book. He said, I'm really interested in this, I'd like you to read it. I read the book. It was a great start because if you connect where I grew up and what I came up with, right? The 70s when, they went off the gold standard and we started printing all kinds of money. The crash in the late 70s and being told that this country's never going to be what it was again. It's sunsetting.
I want to say, I think, because you and I remember it, people who think things are bleak do not remember the 1970s very well.
My first mortgage, which is after. When Jackie and I got our first mortgage, I think it was 14%, right? And at one point it hit 23%. So look, we've been there, but it created a lot of, it started to challenge what we had always assumed was right and real, right? We started challenging certain things. Maybe our government isn't always right. Maybe there are other things going on here that are not in our best interest. You started out with the Keynesians and the Ron Paulites, if you will. I kind of morphed into that. I want the gold standard. I want to audit the Fed. The Keynesians, hey man, we got to collect more money because the more money the government spends, the more it drives our economy. Well, those have now morphed into the crypto bros, the digital assets bros and girls, and the MMTers, the modern monetary theorists, who have this incredibly, it defies gravity. They believe that if a government controls its own fiat currency, you can print and spend as much as you want and there'll never be any negative consequence. I mean, that's what we should be going after university presidents on right now, is you're actually allowing that to come out of your institution.
So you're saying when you read crypto, when you read this book, it resonated with where you already were philosophically?
With all of that.
How do you keep up on it now? This is not a shill for attention, but how do you, how do you keep an understanding on this fast evolving space and the issues and the tokens and the moving ahead? Well,
it's first off, it agrees with everything that I came from. More of a libertarian, more of a self-determinative perspective. But now, I keep reading anything I can get my hands on. I just started a book that I was telling Michael Casey, our friend, about. That he and Frank McCourt wrote, Our Biggest Fight. You want to scare yourself, read the book. They're right. And we've got to figure out as a central government how we create a decentralized internet where you and I control our information, not some data collection country or corporation. But then I have great people around me too. Lizzie Fallon is a kid from Texas who's been working with us for 4 years now. This is the world that she and her colleagues live in. And so I try to live vicariously through the Landon Zindas, who was the original Give Me the Book guy, the Lizzie and everybody else who's in this space. And it's pretty interesting. Here's a story that you won't get out of the 24/7 soundbite entertainment-driven news. Staff, Republican and Democrat staff, actually like each other and work together on this stuff, which is how we end up looking good at the end of the day.
Okay.
Or bad, but I think more good than bad.
Okay, Congressman, thanks very much for that big update. You got a lot going on, and I know everyone's here is interested in more, so thank you very much for your time.
Pat.
Good to see you. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. Thank you, Congressman, and thank you for that plug. That was very sweet of you. Thank you.
We set you up
Matt.
nicely.
Great
I
job.
told you more pictures.
Need more pictures and some charts of some sort. All right, we're going to take a break now, folks, until 12:30. Come back then. There's so much more content. A lot to do. All righty. See you soon.